Just as we love a Cinderella in the month of March and April, Diesel, we also love dark horses in college football. And that is where we are going in the very first segment. Go ahead, Tolos, and begin in your mind to think of the dark horses that come to mind in 2025. The dark horses to make the college football playoff in 2025. You all just thought of one team as your dark horse. We want to hear from you. What was that team? Who was that team? At 844-326-3663. Again, this is to make the college football playoff. We go conference by conference and determine whether or not Diesel's dark horse, my dark horse, your dark horse is really a dark horse, or if it's just a crappy suggestion from you Tolos. But we all know you Tolos don't give crappy suggestions. So that is where we begin the show. Welcome into Wire to Wire. He's Diesel. I'm Cole Bryson on another rainy day, this time a rainy Tolo Tuesday. But nonetheless, it's good to be with you. It's good to be with you until 7 p.m. tonight. Diesel, do you think a dark horse is as exciting as a Cinderella in the month of March?
Well, first of all, I love that song from the Rolling Stones. Dark, dark horses.
Yeah,
I know it's Wild Horses before you guys start firing up those thumbs. I know the song was called Wild Horses.
Yeah, and Chris Stapleton has one called White Horse.
White Horse.
Maybe if he could remake that into Dark Horse.
And there's a band called A Pale Horse Named Death.
Didn't know that. Yeah, of course I didn't know that, right? Yeah. Shocker.
Well.
College football playoff dark horses. That's what makes it fun, right? Trying to figure out who's kind of a sleeper, and for those that may be under a rock or maybe have just woken up and don't know what a dark horse is, that's what we're talking about, right? A sleeper, somebody that we don't expect to make the college football playoff that ultimately could.
Yeah, a team that, is kind of sitting under that radar, maybe had a pretty decent year last year, maybe found something special, got a gem out of the transfer portal, or hired an NFL head coach who's won a whole lot of Super Bowls.
Yeah, that works too.
That's another candidate.
Yeah, it is. It is. That's a good suggestion. And I'm glad you brought that up because that's one of my candidates, Diesel. It really is. I don't know if the Tolos out there will agree, but again, we want to hear from you. We are an interactive show at 844-326-3663. Let's get this conversation rolling as 25 of you Tolos are already watching the show, as you can do live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. You can also listen on the Odyssey app if you ever lose us on 97.1 or 97.7. We're also on the TuneIn app and the iHeartMedia app. So many ways that you can listen to the show. So let's start, Diesel, with your tease there with the NFL or former NFL coach. And let's go conference by conference. I've got the core, what do they call this? The core four now? Instead of the Power Five. Is that what they call it? Core four?
I don't think they know yet. They haven't branded this thing very well. They're not quite sure what the Pac-12 is going to be. I mean, branding doesn't matter anymore, right? The Big Ten doesn't have 10 teams. The Big 12 doesn't have 12 teams. The SEC isn't constrained by the traditional southeastern United States.
Yeah.
None of this stuff matters anymore.
None of it makes sense. We don't have divisions. None of it's based on geography. Nobody really knows what's going on, Tolos. But we're here for you. We're counting down the days to college football. We're getting oh so close. Let's start with the ACC, the conference that doesn't make much geographical sense when you look at the newcomers, right, from the other side of planet Earth, from Russia and Japan, who have joined the conference as of late. So you joked about it.
Yeah, I hear the Tokyo Dragons baseball team just joined ACC football.
That's what I'm saying. It would make just as much sense as Cal and Stanford, right? So you joked about the former NFL coach. I, Diesel, have North Carolina as my dark horse out of the ACC to possibly make a college football playoff run in 2025. Now, again, Tolos, this is not who Diesel and I really think is going to make the CFP. This is who we could just see as a sleeper, an outside shot, a dark horse per se. North Carolina, when I say college football playoff dark horse off the rip, Diesel, agree, disagree, somewhere in between?
Disagree.
Okay.
I know they've got some semblance of talent there in the ACC, but at best at this moment, they are probably the fourth best team in the ACC. At best, you're clearly behind. If you're North Carolina, you're behind Clemson. You're behind SMU.
Georgia Tech.
You're behind Miami, but you're behind Georgia Tech.
Yeah, so you're like five or six, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, look, anything's possible, right? But with Bill Belichick's history and his rapid decline after Tom Brady left New England, Bill's got to prove it to me.
Yeah,
I'm
with you.
I'm not giving Bill his flowers the way some people are. I get that he knows a ton about football, and he's forgotten more football than all of us combined will ever learn. However, you saw once he didn't have the GOAT with him, he didn't go anywhere.
Wasn't great in the NFL after the GOAT left. So, by the way, JD says Tolo on the YouTube stream. What's up, JD? 34 now. Tolo's watching. Diesel, you disagree on North Carolina. So here's why I say North Carolina is a dark horse. We all know, as you pointed out, they're not at the top of the conference. They were picked to finish 8th, by the way, in the ACC without a single first place vote. However, why Cole Bryson today thinks that they could be a sleeper? Well, it's very simple. You and I talked about this at the ACC kickoff up in Charlotte, Diesel. And I believe we were talking about SMU or Miami when it comes to schedule, and you and I were giving our projected order of finish, right? So I'm with you on North Carolina not being one of the top teams in the conference. However, when you look at their schedule, Diesel, do you know who they don't play in 2025? Georgia Tech. Do you also know who they don't play in 2025? Miami. Well, okay, surely the two, right? That's two. Do you also know who they don't play in 2025? SMU. Am I making this up? No. Here's their schedule.
Who did they bribe to get such a cupcake schedule?
So that's where I'm going. No SMU, unless I'm just blind here. No Georgia Tech. No Miami. For Bill Belichick in season 1. I'm going to give you their schedule. They open up with TCU. That could be a tricky game in Chapel Hill. I really do think it could be a tricky game. But if they get past TCU, Diesel, they have the Charlotte 49ers.
Ooh.
The Richmond Spiders.
Oh, my goodness.
They do go to Orlando.
Playing one heck of an FCS schedule.
Oh, yeah, really tough. They go to Orlando for what could be a tricky game against UCF. I actually think that'll be a good game, okay? UCF. Let's say North Carolina starts out 4-0.
The return of Scott Frost, by the way.
There you go. Let's just say they go 4-0. They have a bye week. Then they then they host the Clemson Tigers. We all believe, Diesel, that Clemson will beat North Carolina, right? Could it be close? Maybe. But let's all give North Carolina that loss. Okay, well, who do they have after that Clemson loss, Diesel? Cal, Virginia, Syracuse, Stanford, Wake Forest. I just named 3 teams that were picked to finish at the bottom of the conference, by the way. Duke and NC State. Again, you did not hear me say Miami, SMU, or Georgia Tech on that schedule. So why I think they could be a sleeper to make the college football playoff, they have the easiest schedule. Chapman High School has a more difficult schedule than the North Carolina Tar Heels. So I'm going to go, that's my sleeper. ACC, North Carolina Tolos. Tell me if you agree, disagree. I'm an idiot. I'm maybe not an idiot. Let me know on North Carolina. Diesel disagrees. Do you have a ACC sleeper, Diesel?
Let me rephrase. Let me put it this way as well. You're right. North Carolina plays a garbage, awful,
they do,
awful ACC schedule this year.
They do.
But at the same time, I think given the national landscape where so many teams are figuring out a quarterback situation, there's going to be a tremendous amount of chaos. I think there's going to be a lot of teams sitting there at that 2 and 3 loss area.
Yeah.
And people will say, well, isn't a 3-loss SEC team better than North Carolina? Especially when you consider who is going to be ahead of them there in the ACC. If I had to look at a sleeper in the ACC, don't laugh about this, okay? Don't laugh. I think Florida State could have a really solid comeback year this year.
I thought you would say Louisville.
I think they could have a solid comeback year.
Okay.
Now, Florida State is a dark horse. That's climbing out from under a rock.
Yeah.
Kind of dark horse. But imagine for a moment that Florida State, with that home crowd there at the newly renovated Doak Campbell Stadium, beats Alabama in week 1.
Yeah, that'd be bad.
Whew, Kalen DeBoer, number 1, might be fired.
Yeah.
Number 2, they rocket from, I think they got like 8 votes in the others receiving votes category of the new coaches poll. They rocket into the top 25.
Yeah.
And then their schedule is cake from there on out.
You know, I do like what T. Swizzle said on the YouTube stream. He said, don't sleep on Miller Moss. Dude went bananas in the bowl game for USC. Look, I think Diesel and I both believe Miller Moss could be valuable. Look, Jeff Brom has proven that he knows what he's doing when it comes to developing a quarterback. Jeff Brom in Louisville, I don't consider much of a dark horse in the ACC. Would they be a dark horse to make the college football playoff? Maybe. I think they have a little bit tougher schedule than North Carolina. I like Miller Moss fine. I think it comes down to the others up front, especially for Louisville. Can Louisville be good enough up front to win the big games? That's the physicality for me is where I do have a little bit of question mark when it comes to Louisville. We'll see, though. Up front, big games, Louisville, I think will struggle. But Diesel, let's move from the ACC to the Big 12. The Big 12, we all know, is a wacky conference, right? Is wacky the right word there?
Yeah, I mean, a bunch of solid to mediocre teams. If you want to put it that way.
Saying. Like, it's not really – you don't look at it and think, oh,
it's like a tallest midget contest.
Yeah, I mean, there are teams that have history. There are also teams that have potential, and then there are also teams that are somewhere in the middle of, like, okay, like Utah. Like what? They were 2-7. Utah used to be pretty good, right? And they were 2-7 in the conference last year. So it's a weird conference.
Utah seemed poised a couple of years ago to take over the Pac-12. And then everything changed. They changed conferences, and they fell off hard.
Yeah. So, when it comes to the Big 12, I did find it a little bit more difficult to find a sleeper, a dark horse, to make the college football playoff out of this conference. Why? Well, the Big 12 decided to stop doing a preseason media poll after Arizona won the title in 2024 after being selected last in the preseason. So, basically, they got embarrassed.
We're so bad at this, let's just not do it again.
Right. So bad at it. The team that we picked to finish last won the freaking conference. So we're done with that. We're getting rid of that. So we all know that the Big 12, as we just mentioned, is kind of fickle, right? When you look at the favorites, I think the favorites is also a little bit difficult of a conversation. I looked at Kansas State. I think they're a Big 12 contender, Diesel, year in, year out. BYU was really good last year. Colorado, we'll see with Prime. But I think Baylor, the Bears, out in Waco, Texas, are my sleeper out of the Big 12. Baylor won 6 straight regular season games to end the 2024 season. They bring back quarterback Sawyer Robertson, preseason first-team All-Big 12 running back Bryson Washington. 4 starters are also back on the offensive line. Think about that. They're going to be good up front. So Baylor should have like all the markings of a conference-winning title offense with a lot of experience, but it comes down to the defense. They lost a lot last year. They're going to have to win a lot of shootouts in 2025. Any problem with the Baylor Bears being my sleeper? Agree or disagree there?
It sounds like you've convinced yourself that Baylor may challenge for the conference championship.
You never know. Defensively,
is that really a sleeper candidate at that point?
I think they're going to struggle big time defensively. I don't have my Phil Steele magazine with me. I'll grab it during the break. It's in my office. But offensively, they don't bring – I mean, offensively, they do bring back a lot. Defensively, we'll see. I don't know that I'm – here's why I say they're a sleeper. I don't know that I'm sold on their defense. I think they're going to struggle big time defensively.
If I'm looking at the Big 12, I'm looking over at Lubbock. Way out on the west side of the state. A team that went 8-5 last year, who brings their quarterback back in Baron Morton. A veteran defense. Got some good transfers in. I'm looking at Texas Tech as a possible sleeper to make the college football playoff. And, you know, the Big 12 is, as they are coming into the 2025 season, probably not a conference that's going to give you 3 bids. They are, at best, a 2-bid league, maybe even 1, right?
Yeah.
So you're looking at champion and whoever plays in the conference championship game and loses. I think that might be Texas Tech and the Red Raiders.
The only reason I would agree with you and not push back is McGuire and his staff, Diesel, at Texas Tech signed the number 1 ranked transfer portal class in the country, according to On3.com. Texas Tech is predicted to finish second in the Big Ten in 2025. So
Big 12.
Big 12, I'm sorry, in the Big 12.
That'd be a shocker if they finish second in the Big Ten.
Well, let's go to the Big Ten. Big Ten, sleeper to make the college football playoff. I do believe the Big Ten, we all know, is a little bit better of a conference. Maybe not top to bottom, Diesel, but in terms of your top teams, you do have the Ohio States of the world, the Michigans, the Oregons of the world, right? The Penn States, who a lot of people are. By the way, Heather Dinich this morning predicted or said that Penn State should have been number 1 in the coaches poll.
Ooh.
Heather Dinich said Penn State should have been number 1. I saw that and heard that live, and I was like, wow. She was on ESPN. And
how do you put them number 1 in the coaches poll when their coach is James Franklin?
That's what I'm saying.
He's a -1 at the gate.
That's what I'm saying. That automatically put because of his record, right, against top teams. So Big Ten, Oregon's going to be good. Indiana's going to be good. Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan, we'll see, right? Diesel, I'm going to go Illinois as my sleeper to make the college football playoff.
Okay.
Why? Well, they play Ohio State at home this season in 2025. Illinois also avoids on their schedule, going back to my North Carolina point, with the schedule of who they do and don't play, Diesel. Illinois avoids Oregon, and they avoid Penn State. So they don't play Oregon, they don't play Penn State, they do play Ohio State, but they get them at home. Now, granted, back-to-back games in September against Indiana, at Indiana, and hosting Southern Cal will not be easy. But the Illinois, the Illini could be the better team. They could be. They won 10 games last year, right? They returned preseason, all Big Ten quarterback, Luke Altmaier, talent at every level. Defense is really good. Gabe Jacobs, Xavier Scott. The Fighting Illini, Diesel, I think, could make a push. Again, kind of in the same conversation as Baylor. They're kind of on that bubble of making a push for the conference. That's why I put them as a sleeper to make the college football playoff.
Out of the Big Ten as a sleeper, and I like Illinois, I do. You could maybe say Indiana, but I don't know if you can call them a sleeper anymore or a dark horse, considering they made the CFP last year. I'm looking at a team like Michigan that is projected to win 8 regular season games this year. That was from CBS's Tom Fornelli. The losses that they have predicted, 2 of which are Ohio State and Oklahoma. They're losing the Ohio State game. It is what it is. I think they'll get Oklahoma on the road.
Ooh.
There's just something about this Oklahoma squad that I don't see them pulling back up out of the depths. I think this being another bad year for Oklahoma sees the head coach get fired.
Ooh.
So Michigan wins that game. All of a sudden, they're a 9-win team with only a loss. One of their big losses being Ohio State, so they'll kind of get a pass for that one. Yeah, I'm going with Michigan.
Michigan, look, what did they do to end the season? How did they finish? They beat Bama, right, in a bowl game. So I think there's something to be said for that.
And maybe Bryce Underwood is that dude.
Maybe so. He's highly recruited, right? We finished with the SEC. My sleeper in the SEC, Diesel, Ole Miss. Well, Ole Miss has been the team that I've been disappointed in the past few years because we talked about it last season. They just have not been able to get over that hump. Look, we all know what kind of offensive mastermind Lane Kiffin is, right? But I think it's the defense of Ole Miss that's intriguing entering the 2025 season. They have a guy named Perkins who's back. He had 10.5 sacks last season. He'll be joined by Deshaun Womack on the edge as Womack transferred in from LSU. So you've got Perkins, Womack on opposite sides. Defensive lineman Xavier Harris and linebacker Princewell. You remember how to pronounce
Prince Umanmielen?
Umanmielen, right? Who is now
a Carolina Panther,
yeah. Right? So obviously we know that the defense they've had dudes. Mm-hmm. But, Diesel, when you look at preseason All-SEC honorees, Ole Miss is going to be pretty loaded defensively. They're going to be pretty loaded. I just don't know, with Jackson Dart being replaced by Austin Simmons, I don't know how quickly Lane Kiffin can get Austin Simmons to the level of production that Jackson Dart was at. I think he'll work his magic. But when it comes to the schedule, the Rebels get LSU, South Carolina, and Florida at home. So you're, again, hosting LSU, South Carolina, Florida. You have to go to Georgia. Obviously, going to Oklahoma will be tough. But there's a world where Ole Miss finishes with at most 2 losses in a parity-filled SEC in my mind. So in the SEC, I'm going as my dark horse to make the college football playoff, Lane Kiffin's Rebels.
I don't hate it, but I'm just not sold on Ole Miss considering they bring back less than half of their production from last year in a
lost a lot.
Tough SEC slate. The defense, I think they're going to be fine. They did lose a couple of interior linemen there on the defensive line, but I think they're going to be fine overall defensively. Offense is where they're going to struggle. Jackson Dart gone. Key contributors, most of the receiving corps is gone.
Yeah.
Running back gone. So that's going to be hard. That's going to be hard for Lane Kiffin to replace that. Then again, Lane Kiffin is, some people would say, an offensive genius, an offensive guru, and maybe he can adjust, figure out how to use the talent he has this year to his advantage and sort of change up everything from what they were doing last year. So maybe that might not matter.
I just don't know. When it comes to Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin, at some point, doesn't he have to get over the hump? And I don't know.
Yeah, but being due is not a thing.
Not, yeah.
It's like Rob Brown's promo where he says luck is not a thing, and that's right. Luck is not a thing.
Yes, it is.
You may be fortunate in that you get a fortunate bounce. It's not a lucky bounce. It's not like there's some will on the ball that makes it bounce a certain way. But him being due, him getting close all these times, that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
It just means you were slightly worse than who you went up against every single chance you had.
Diesel, by the way, Umanmielen. So you've got Princely with the Panthers, Prince Will.
Oh,
and I think I said that wrong earlier. Princely, we all know, went to the Panthers. Prince Will, which is really close to his brother's name, by the way. It's Prince, Will, is the younger brother who now plays for Ole Miss. Used to play at Nebraska, transferred to Ole Miss. So you've got 2 Umanmielens.
So you could say it's a family tradition.
Yeah, you could, Hank. You really could. So there we go.
Best part of that Country Fest, Rock the Country.
Yeah.
A couple weeks ago.
You and I weren't there for Kid Rock, so
I've seen Kid Rock before. He's good. He's great every single time. Cole, I got to tell you, man, I think I might have one of the boozy Celsius.
Way.
I think I do.
There's no way.
This tastes a little funny.
The grape's a little.
It's a sparkling grape rush. Never had this flavor before, so again, I don't know what it's supposed to taste like. But I have had those like boozy little ice pops, the ones you used to get as a kid, the long skinny tube you cut the top off of, that have vodka in them. There's a chance. So, truth be told, Cole, I have to leave the show because you can't be on the radio if you've been.
So you're going home.
Yeah,
I like it. I don't think you've got the mixed Celsius.
You think Hendricks will buy it?
Yeah, I think he should. I don't think you should tell him.
When we come back, Cole, how far will the loser of the Ohio State-Texas showdown in week number 1 fall in the week number 2 poll? We'll talk about that and do a little win-loss prediction on the top 10 and see where we think they'll sit after week number 1 going into week number 2. That's next. have a big problem with preseason polls when it comes to college football. Not because I think they're wrong. A lot of them are wrong. And people have certain agendas. But what I don't like about them is, even though we know they're incredibly wrong, the data, i.e. the little number attached to a school's name early in the season, absolutely creates bias in the minds of those who later on down the road have to vote on these teams and have to create the actual official poll. Are you telling me that the folks who sit in that room at the CFP have absolutely no clue that Texas is the number one team going into the season? They have no clue that Ohio State is number 2.
So a narrative creates another narrative.
Exactly. It's sort of like a...
Never happened, by the way. We get in trouble.
It's sort of like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
They get this idea in their head that Ohio State is really good, or that Texas is really good, or that Penn State is really good, because somebody else assigned a number to them in the offseason.
They forget that the conversation happened. You don't believe that they do? That the college football playoff committee, they get in there?
It's like when you watch like courtroom dramas. You ever watch court movies where there's a trial going on and an attorney will object to something that was said, and the judge says the jury will disregard that previous statement. You can't disregard previous statements. You can't just choose to forget something. You know, the information is there. Now, it may create a bias. It may not create a bias. But it's there, and if it's there, there's a good chance that it will. So I'm looking at this just gargantuan matchup that we have in week number 1. Number 1 Texas against number 2 Ohio State. They are number 1 and they are number 2 because somebody decided that they were. What happens, though, if Julian Sayin is the next DJU? Maybe he goes out there and lays a massive egg.
You just cursed that kid.
In week number 1. Sorry, Julian, it's not personal. I promise you. I don't have anything against you. But like, what if Texas absolutely goes out there and kicks their ass?
Yeah. No, I'm with you. Look, the reality of it is, we've talked about this many, many times, but preseason polls, regardless of the sport, and people ask me all the time, like, Cole, why don't you do more preseason polls and lists for high school football and stuff? And look, it's not about being wrong. It's just about creating a narrative, Diesel. You're creating a narrative based on a lot of belief and not a lot of facts. That's what these are.
Right.
The shows that we do, the predictions, it's based on a lot of belief, gut, intuition.
We somehow believe, and we all believe that Alabama has more talent than North Carolina does because, well, those kids have more stars next to their name. And if they have more stars next to their name, they're clearly more developed already, and they are more talented, and they are going to stay more talented for their entire lives, disregarding the fact that, you know, a player from Team B could go on to have a great NFL career, better than somebody on that Alabama team. But we create these narratives in our mind. And so if Texas beats the crap out of Ohio State falls to wherever it is they're going to fall in week number 2, Texas will still get credit for pummeling Ohio State, even if Ohio State turned out to be a bad football team. They'll still get credit for it. And that's kind of what I'm saying here, is this narrative that it convinces people that good teams, that preseason believed to be good teams are good no matter what.
Now, look, I will say, to play devil's advocate here, I understand why we have them. You talk about creating drama. We wouldn't be able to say, Diesel, we're for the first time ever, the number 1 team is playing the number 2 team in the opening weekend of college football for the first time ever. Like, it's never happened. You wouldn't obviously be able to say that for those rankings, right?
Couldn't you make a conspiratorial argument that people chose to rank them 1 and 2 so that we could create the first ever 1-2 matchup in college football week 1?
If you're a conspiracy, maybe. I mean, it's not far-fetched. I just think that ultimately, when you look at polls, and look, there's so many people that think polls are the end-all, be-all. there's a group of people that do a high school poll for the entire state. And Diesel, these people that are doing these polls have never watched the teams across the state, and they're doing polls. My point being, there are people who believe polls matter, and I tell people all the time, they're polls. You know how parents do, and they put so much stock into these polls, right? Ultimately, we all kind of at this point, and like the bigwigs of college football, all the Josh Pates of the world, they might not want to admit this, Diesel, but ultimately right now we all know the same. We all have the same information. There's
which is nothing.
There's right.
The answer
there's
is none.
nothing
We have no
that
information.
you know that I don't know. There's
Sure.
nothing that I know that you don't know. So when you talk about these teams, you can, based on information, like if I talk to Shane Beamer and he tells me this, and that about his team, about these guys, how they're developing defensively, how they've stepped in, had big roles, they had a really good spring, really good summer, I might be inclined to think, maybe South Carolina's defense won't take as much of a step back as we think because I have this information. I'm not saying people out there don't have insider information. I'm just saying right now, until you line up and play, I'm not a big fan of the preseason poll stuff.
Well, you could also argue that any coach would be biased as to how good their team is.
Yeah.
And we all know coaches sometimes lie in advance of the season to tell you that we're good at this position group, or no, we're not so good at that position group, or we think we might play this person, but that person over there is developing nicely. Nobody knows. None of this stuff means anything, which, again, goes back to my point. We should not be ranking teams at all until minimum week 3.
And that's why I like the CFP.
That's why you need smart people like Kelly Ford, who we're going to start bringing on the show here in a couple of weeks, who have algorithms, right? They base this stuff on a tremendous amount of information, and you can compare how the team performed against a team versus what they were predicted or expected to perform against that team. Did they overachieve against those expectations? Did they underachieve against those expectations? And you need data, otherwise you're going to have massive fluctuations.
The only thing, Diesel, that I would say to your data point is, while I don't disagree with you, the only thing that concerns me about data preseason, I'm not saying data during the season. I love what those guys like Kelly Ford do during the season with real data. The only thing that concerns me with preseason data is you can have all the preseason data you want until those guys get on the field and play and have to play as a team. With football being such a team game, in the era of transfer portal, take, for example, North Carolina, who has, 60 new players on the roster. You can data me all you want. My point is, you and I may not jive on the field like the data says we're going to jive.
It may be impossible to actually crunch those numbers and say, hey, we pulled Gio Lopez from South Alabama, and we pulled this guy from Tennessee Tech, and we pulled that guy from there.
Yeah.
And they're all being coached by this guy, and that guy's players tend to do this. And there's no way.
Well,
there's no way to know that information.
So I like the
preseason.
Gio Lopez example. I think that's a good one. He's at North Carolina now, right? So he was at South Alabama, now he's in North Carolina. So that's a good example to me, and I'll use that example to kind of back my last point up. What have we seen from Gio Lopez in the what conference?
Sun Belt.
Sun Belt, that leads us to believe he can compete in the Power Fours. There's just nothing. I'm not saying you can't look at his game and see attributes, but when you look at Gio Lopez in the Sun Belt, how do we know how Gio Lopez is going to be in the ACC? Hey, how do we know Joey
Aguilar?
Yeah, how do we know? What have we seen on the field, Diesel, that tells us, you and I, how Joey's going to be at Tennessee?
Not much.
We hadn't.
Not much. You can point to a game or two here and there, and you could argue that Gio Lopez, if he's now playing with a bunch of dudes that transferred from other power schools, let's say a bunch of kids came from Syracuse and Penn State and South Carolina and Florida State, and they're all there. You could argue that he has more talent because these were all more highly recruited players than what he had at South Alabama. But there's no guarantee that he's going to be able to hit them in the open field. So it's a crapshoot. You never know. That's why you wait. So let's do this, Cole. Let's go. Let's do a little prediction here. The preseason top 10 based on the coaches poll. We talked about it yesterday. and see what we think is going to happen with these 10 teams that are ranked preseason top 10, win-loss, and do a little prediction on where we think they might land in week number 2 of the season. And I get it, we're getting towards the end of this break, so we'll have to go quickly. Week 1, Texas on the road at Ohio State. Win-loss for Texas.
We're going win, just straight win-loss.
Straight win-loss.
I'm going to go win.
I got win as well.
Okay. God, that's going to be you could convince me.
Sure. Ohio State hosting Texas. I got it obviously as a loss as you do. Yeah. Penn State hosting Nevada. Win.
Penn State hosting Nevada. I'm going, big win, Penn State.
Georgia hosting Marshall.
Win.
Win. Yeah. This is where it gets interesting.
It is interesting.
Notre Dame, number 5, on the road at number 10 Miami to start the season.
I think this could be a close game.
I'm going
loss. You going loss for Notre Dame?
I'm going loss for Notre Dame.
Both teams breaking in a new quarterback. Now, Notre Dame has the championship. They have that high-level experience, the big game experience as of recent that Miami doesn't have. So
Miami's got Carson Beck.
Boy, this one's tough. Right now, today, I'd go Notre Dame today.
You go loss for Notre Dame. Win for Notre Dame.
Yeah.
So you've got to win for Notre Dame.
I'd go win right now today.
Okay.
Today, I'd go win Notre Dame.
Clemson against LSU. Number 6 versus number 9. Number 6 hosted. This is not our official prediction. This is just a quick win-loss.
Yeah. Oh, boy. And let me tell you this. Side note, I've been battling this every day because we're making our predictions next week. I've been going back and forth. Right now, I'll go win. Right now, I will.
Okay.
I don't know if that'll be.
I got to win as well.
Will that be the case next week? I don't know. We'll see.
I think just home field advantage pushes that over the top for Clemson. All right. Pretty easy from here on out. Alabama on the road at Florida State. Win.
Yeah, me too.
Okay. LSU, by virtue of us having Clemson win, that's a loss for both of us. And the only difference, the only thing we disagree on, is Miami Notre Dame.
True.
So you've got Notre Dame winning that one. Miami falling outside of the top 10.
That's going to be a good game.
It kind of depends on performance at this point. Going back to the original point of this conversation, how far does Ohio State fall if they lose to Texas? I think it entirely depends on performance. We both have Ohio State losing that game. If they keep it close, I think they don't fall much farther than 5 at the most. But if they get blown out, I don't know if they fall outside of the top 10. And that's a problem. If you get your ass kicked in week number 1 at home, and you're telling me it's impossible for you to fall outside of the top 10, that's bias all day.
The narratives that continue to create narratives is almost like Clark Griswold said, Diesel. It's the gift that just keeps on giving, right?
Andrew DeLora says Notre Dame is full of sissies who won't renew the Purdue rivalry.
Oh, man.
Miami loses by more than 2 touchdowns.
Thanks for being on the stream, Andrew. Appreciate you. Diesel, our whip around the sports world, our Daily Wires next. Well, what else is happening in the world of sports? Maybe you've had a long day at work. This Tuesday, you're ready to get home, and you just have been buried in what you do every day. We have a segment for you called Daily Wires, where that's what we do. We bring you all of the top headlines. Diesel, how about this for the Gamecock fans out there? Today, Netflix released their 8-episode documentary series called SEC Football. Any Given Saturday. The documentary gives fans a look at key matchups throughout the 2024 SEC season. All episodes are available today. The series includes many South Carolina games / moments. I didn't know about this, but I'm going to watch. I love it. Anything to do with the SEC, documentary-wise, sign me up.
Yeah, I'll have to get the password back from the in-laws. Freaking Netflix, man. It signs you out constantly.
It does.
Sucks.
Tell me when you hear a Daily Wire that surprises you, Diesel. The Braves were defeated on Monday, 3-1 by the Brewers. Can I get you there?
Womp womp.
No surprise. And good news, the Braves are only 16 and a half games back in the National League.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
No. Joey Wentz. Have you heard that name before? Joey Wentz on the mound tonight for the Bravo, 7:15 first pitch. And this one might surprise you. So it might not take long. You know, the Cleveland Browns, you and I in America, didn't really believe they needed another quarterback. Well, guess what they did today? They signed another quarterback. Because why not have 9, right? Or 10?
They don't get credit for those sitting on the bench, right?
The Browns have signed quarterback Tyler Huntley, sources told ESPN's Adam Schefter on Monday, adding depth. So now you have Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, Dylan Gabriel. Oh, Deshaun Watson's still on the roster. Shedeur Sanders, right? Oh, and now add Tyler Huntley. What are we doing?
That doesn't speak very highly of
Anybody?
Shedeur's developments. I hear the Bears are trying to move on from Caleb Williams. Maybe they could add him too.
We're adding depth because 9 quarterbacks isn't enough. The Las Vegas Raiders.
That's one hell of a wildcat offense right there.
No
Everybody
kidding.
on the field is a quarterback.
Talk about 22 personnel. The Las Vegas Raiders are trading cornerback Jacorian Bennett to the Philadelphia Eagles in exchange for DT Thomas Booker, sources told ESPN's Adam Schefter. In Chicago Cubs starter and former Atlanta Brave Michael Soroka left his first game with his new team with a right shoulder discomfort and will require a stint on the IR for the Chicago Cubs. Texas A&M further solidified its future at quarterback Sunday when 4-star recruit J.C. Johnson, Diesel, ESPN's number 3 prospect at that position in the 2027 class, announced his commitment to Mike Elko on Sunday. Aggies stacking them up.
Just in time for Aaron Anderson, who's watching on YouTube. Welcome to the stream. Says Texas A&M will make the playoffs.
Right, I like it. In Spartanburg, after a career performance, Spartanburger starter Jose Gonzalez won South Atlantic League Pitcher of the Week honors for the week of July 29th to August 3rd. Gonzalez is the second Spartanburgers pitcher to win this honor this season. Also in Spartanburg, relating to Wofford College men's basketball head coach Dwight Perry has announced that Ty Anderson has been promoted to associate head coach. Anderson is entering his 4th season with the Terriers. In Columbia, University of South Carolina quarterback Lenora Sellers and edge rusher Dylan Stewart are 2 of 46 players to watch on the Walter Camp 2025 Player Award list. Also, the Walter Camp Football Foundation announced today that quarterback Cade Klubnik and defensive lineman Peter Woods. In case you missed it, those 2 were from yesterday. Bringing them back to you on today's Daily Wires, just in case you might have missed it. One more for you. In case you missed this also yesterday, and I believe this is good news, it was announced that the men's college basketball tournament will not expand for the 2026 season. So
Finally.
We're staying, Diesel.
Finally,
68.
somebody is getting it right. We're not expanding just for the sake of making money. I don't think it'll stick forever. I think this thing will expand eventually, and I don't like it, but it will.
The only bad part is, Diesel, the 69th best team in the country won't have a chance to make the college tournament or the national championship. But the 69th best team, for some reason, people believe should have a shot. I don't get it. I'm with you.
It's all about getting more brands and
All
more
about
fan
more
bases
moolah,
involved, baby.
More money.
When we come back, Tolos, you've heard us talk about it. Drips and drabs over the course of the summer. We bring it back here in 2 weeks' time. I want to get you caught back up, those of you Tolos who are new to the show or just kind of waking back up, coming out of your hibernation. I want to reteach you the rules of the college football upset picks challenge. That's not going to take very long. On top of that, Cole, who is the most hated owner in all of sports right now? Can I even get a second name to be nominated? Because I think I know who just about everyone is going to say. That's coming your way next right here on 97.7 FM in Greenville, 97.1 FM in Spartanburg, and everywhere on the free Odyssey app. Last year, we set a record for the most number of individual players, and I'm pretty sure the most number of points for the winner that we've ever had in the Wire-to-Wire Upset Picks Challenge, brought to you by Ingles Markets, by the way. We appreciate their fantastic sponsorship of the event. But this is one of the most fun things we do year in and year out on the station and on this show. And I know that, last year you and I were pretty fresh doing a show together, and some Tolos were just figuring this thing out, and we're constantly having new people move to the upstate of South Carolina and finding us. So you guys need to be previewed, caught up to speed on what happens in the Wire-to-Wire Upset Picks Challenge, so that here in just... are we seriously 2 weeks away from doing this? 2 weeks away.
We are
from starting the Wire-to-Wire Upset Picks Challenge. You know what's going on before we get this thing started, and you're not catching up from behind.
I like it. Is Ingles back, by the way?
Did you say are that? Back.
We need to in the next 2 weeks. I agree with what Twisted Whisker said on the Hub City Spartanburgers text line. I know there are some rules with us being a big corporation owned by a corporation in terms of prizes and things like that. But we got to put a little something on the. I don't know.
Here's the problem, and I'm gonna let Twisted Whisker know the honest truth here.
Yeah.
When we involve prizing, it creates a ton of legal headaches.
Yeah.
Because you know why? Even if everybody here agrees that we're all gonna do this in good nature and good fun, all it takes is one person to get upset and then sue the radio station saying, you screwed me out of that prize, even if it's just a styrofoam cooler that says Ingles on the side. Somebody will get mad, and they'll get legal involved. So I get what you're saying, Twisted Whisker, and I'm just letting you know the facts here.
That's Twisted Whisker. Sometimes there are downsides of being big and corporate. There are.
Yes.
There are downsides. So
we tried to get legal contest rules set up. By the way, that's why we have to call it a challenge and not a contest.
Yeah.
It's not a contest because there's no actual prize involved. We're going to keep working on that. So maybe next year we'll be able to get this put together. And look, we've talked to our friends over at Ingles, and they would say, heck yeah, we put together a cool prize for this. But that's when you got to get legal involved. It gets corporate involved. And it turns this thing from a simple, hey, text in your name, your game, and your spread, to we got to do this thing on the website. We got to do it officially. And then, of course, that changes kind of how the contest is run.
Yep.
And it magnifies if we make a mistake. Now that opens us up to legal challenges.
Yeah.
So I'm just giving you the God's honest truth as to why that is still a speed bump we have yet to get over. But we're trying. We're trying.
We acknowledge, Twisted Whisker, that it's stupid. I acknowledge that. I don't want to put words in Diesel's mouth.
Twisted Whisker says, that's what's wrong with the world. Everyone gets a trophy.
Go.
How about this, Twisted Whisker? Everyone gets a trophy. If you finish with points, you get a trophy. So we literally go, everyone gets a trophy.
This is why I shouldn't. This is why HR doesn't like me, because I would be like, you know what? There's no prize involved. Wink, wink. You know what I mean? And there would be a prize involved.
Yeah.
And then HR would somehow find out, and they'd get pretty upset, I'm sure.
Right.
But I'm with you, Twisted Whisker. I'm with you.
So here's how this works. Again, I know some of you Tolos have played this game in the past. You've been a part of this challenge in the past, but we have new Tolos every day and every year. So, and we're going to go over these a couple more times as we get a little bit closer to the start of the Upset Picks Challenge. But the name of this game is the Underdog or the Upset Picks Challenge. Your goal every single week, and this is a challenge that you want to participate in every single week, your challenge is to pick a game where you think the betting underdog will win the game outright. Doesn't matter if they beat the spread, they have to win the game outright. And if you're right, you get the points by which that team was an underdog added to a rolling season-long tally. So I'm just going to make this up off the top of my head. If it's North Carolina, TCU, and the spread is TCU -5, and North Carolina wins that game outright, you would get 5 points added to your tally, which would be 0 going into week 1. So you'd have 5 points after week 1. And then the next week, your goal is to pick another game that you think is going to be an upset. Now, here's where this gets fun. If you get a pick right, you get those points added to the tally. If you get a pick wrong, you lose a point. There is a punishment to losing or getting a pick incorrect. If you don't make a pick at all, you lose 2 points. That's how we keep you coming back week after week after week. It is punitive to not pick every single week. So how do we make this happen? Tolos, your job will be to go to ESPN.com as of 3 p.m. on Wednesdays. We will lock those spreads in. Pick a game that you think will be an upset. Then starting at 4 o'clock, you'll be able to call it in or text it in to the show during show hours. That gives you the majority of the Wednesday show and the entirety of the Thursday and Friday shows to get your picks in. They have to be sent in during show hours. We're not going back and reading the text line from 1 a.m. to see if somebody got their pick in. You send them in during the show, we write them all down, and then Dan B does his magic over the course of the weekend and assigns the correct number of points to people who pick the games correctly.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. If you're out there and you can't understand this upset picks challenge, there might be something wrong with you. I mean, it's real simple. As Diesel said, the amount of points the underdogs favored by, if they win the game, that's how many points you get. It's really not confusing, by the way.
And we can only penalize you so far. You cannot fall below 0 points. So if you get 3 points for week number 1 because you picked a 3-point upset, and you don't get anything wrong for 4 straight or get anything right for 4 straight weeks after that, you stay at 0 until you get another one correct. You don't fall below 0.
On the YouTube stream, DB says officially 207 individuals sent in at least one pick. Let's get this to 250. I think we can. I had a friend of mine not long ago say that he did not participate in the upset picks challenge last year and wanted to this year. A lot of people who don't start the challenge don't want to just jump in halfway. You still can, but we encourage you to do it from the very beginning. So don't wait. Don't be like, I'll wait and see how this thing goes. Just go ahead and jump in. And you said it. We are 2 weeks away, Diesel, because the very first week is I do what you said, pull up the ESPN app and then click on NCAA football. And by the way, very important, click D1, not top 25, FBS 1A, right?
Correct.
So all the games are shown. Week 1 is Saturday, August 23rd, according to the ESPN app, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games.
So this is an important thing.
Yeah.
We are splitting the week 0 games, which is the first part of week 1.
Yeah.
And the true week 1 games
to start on Thursday
into 2 separate weeks. So week 0 will be the 5 games that are scheduled for Saturday, August 23rd. Week 1 will be all games starting Thursday, August 28th through Monday, September 1st.
I like it. I like it a lot.
Yep.
And those 5, we're still waiting. We'll find a spread, I'm sure, on Idaho State and UNLV.
Sure.
But the other 4, you say, well, there's only 5 games. I think that'll make it fun. I really do, because you've got Iowa State, Kansas State, Fresno State, Kansas, Sam Houston, Western Kentucky, and then Saturday night, Diesel, Stanford, Hawaii. No great games that day, but guess what it is? It's college football.
And there will be lines on them. See, there will be lines. That's what makes it fun. It's kind of a game within a game. Dan B says, last year we kind of sometimes allowed D2 games that had lines. No, we're not doing D2 games. Division I games only that have spreads. And we really try to keep it FBS, but if it's an FBS versus FCS game that has a line, like if North Dakota State, because North Dakota State friggin' upsets everybody, right? If North Dakota State's playing Nebraska this year and it's a 14-point spread, North Dakota State wins that game, we want you to be able to pick that game. So we try, again, to not go FCS matchups or Division II matchups. But occasionally one of those does slip in there. Again, we try to keep it Division I FBS games.
So, good question on the Hub City Spartanburgers text line. Can you guys give us the day you're opening the challenge? It will be 2 weeks from tomorrow.
Correct.
August the 20th.
Correct.
Again, that is 2 weeks from tomorrow. we'll be at an Ingles that day. Tomorrow we're in Spartanburg. That day we'll be in Piedmont. So literally 2 weeks from tomorrow, it's already here. So mark your calendars, Tolos. Everybody, stop as long as you're not driving. Mark your calendars for August the 20th. That is the first official day of the Upset Picks Chat. We're 2 weeks away from this.
That's it. And obviously be aware that there are going to be, later on in the season, there's going to be Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday games. You got to be aware of that and make sure you're not picking a game that's already been played because you don't realize that this Maction was a Wednesday night game.
Yeah, I love those games.
I mean, you can pick a Maction game on Wednesday.
Yeah.
But it has to, obviously, you have to pick it before the game kicks off.
No Tuesday games.
No Tuesday games. You won't be able to pick those anyway.
That's what I'm saying. There won't be. You can't pick the Tuesday games because they don't. Now, I will say to the Tolos out there that may be listening today that did not participate last season, that maybe you don't text in a lot, maybe you don't call in, you never have, and maybe you didn't participate in the Upset Picks Challenge because we know there's hundreds and thousands of you out there. I'm telling you, it's a lot of fun. Even if you're not good and you're competitive like I am, it's fun because it's difficult. I was not good last year at all. I was terrible, but I've been looking forward to this for an entire year.
And, don't get discouraged. This is just good advice for those of you, if you get to week 4 and 5 and you haven't made a pick correctly yet, don't get discouraged because you could hit, people will go on a heater.
Harold did.
Harold, yep. I don't think he had any points until
he didn't get in. He didn't get in
until late.
Yeah,
and then he made a push.
Yep.
He made a charge in the back half of the season. So having 0 points does not mean you're out of this thing. It may mean you're not going to win the whole thing, but you could still get up there in the top half of the standings and have fun playing.
I also think I'm going to incorporate a rule on myself this year that I'm not going to do games over 10. I just
that's a strategy
because I think last time I went home run too many times, and instead of home run, I went holy freaking air ball and just missed. It's tough. You throw up those Hail Marys and. I think I'm going to stay under 10, maybe 12 at the most, but I think I'm going to stay around 10 points in terms of I'm not going to – what that means is I'm not going to go out there and pick a underdog that's 14 points,
But we also had was it – I don't think it was Dewey. Who was it? We had a Tolo who had never played jump in and pick Kennesaw State to upset somebody in week 6. And they got something close to 25 points.
I think that was a midweek game, too.
I think so,
God.
yeah. Dan B says he went until week 10 or 11 before he got a pick right last year.
And who else?
And he finished with more points than you did, Cole.
Well, that wasn't hard. That wasn't difficult. Who else was it? What's his name, Diesel? He was usually good at this challenge, and last year he was horrible. He finally, I think, got one late.
Me?
No. Delvin.
Delvin, yes.
Delvin. Delvin's one can tell you.
Delvin was always great at this challenge.
And last year was a tough year for Delvin.
Yep. He finished with 12 points at the end of the season. But Delvin's got something. He's got magic in his fingers when it comes to picking these games.
I love seeing exactly what the other Tolos are doing as well. When DB sends us the list, the updated standings, it's a lot of fun.
I've got last year's final standings. And by the way, we'll do it the same way we always have. We're going to break the bowl season into pre-Christmas bowls and post-Christmas bowls. The winning score last year was 84 points. That was Twisted Whisker. Congratulations to you. John Dog, Joe D, Noel, Justin L.
Joe D did really good last year.
Yeah. And that was those guys were neck and neck up to the end of the season.
Who did you say won it?
Twisted Whisker.
Twisted Whisker. He's texting in,
Twisted Whisker.
Yeah, he did good.
Harold finished with 40 points.
That's not bad.
And you're right. He didn't get into it until late. We also usually go through the ESPN College Game Day Superdog picks, and we will assign those picks to Desmond and to Pat McAfee, just so you can get a sense of how you're doing against the pros. Obviously, they're not playing under the exact same rules as this, but it's just fun to see how you are compared to them when it comes to picking underdogs.
Philip Moore says, how could you possibly forget Delvin, the man? I'm sorry, you're right, Philip. I don't know how I forgot Delvin. He is the man. Hurricane Jeff on the Hub City Spartanburgers text line says, I didn't get one right until about halfway through the season myself, and I ended up top 30 by the end of the season.
Yep.
That's true. You just never know.
I finished 12th last year, and
really
I was
good.
awful until week 5 or 6.
12th's really good. You finished top. How many total were there? 230?
We had
230?
He said there was 207 or 217. Yeah, 207 individual players.
That's a lot.
We
man.
finished with 104 that finished with points.
So 100. So about half.
Yeah,
finished with points.
And again, not everybody plays every week. Not everybody continues. They may play once or twice, but we want you to play every single week.
Yeah, you got to play
fun.
every week. You got to do it every week. We don't just halfway do things on the Fan Upstate.
And the truth is, the more and more and more Tolos we get playing this thing year in and year out, that's going to be the thing that gets the sales staff downstairs and corporate to say, oh, wow, this thing is huge. We need to do a prize for this. We need to blow this thing up more and more, right? So if we can go to them and say, and Dan set the goal at 250. If we can go and say, hey, that's 250 people times, 18 weeks of the season, that's how many sellable impressions you're getting if you put a sponsorship on this thing.
I'm going to tell them I'm going to quit if they don't give us a prize. That's what I'm going to tell them. I'm with Twisted Whisker. We got to prize this thing up. RJ on the Hub City Spartanburgers text line says, don't know a thing about how to pick a spread, so I'm going to ride with the Liberty Flames and hope it works out.
Well, I'm not sure they're going to be an underdog very often this season.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
They've got their schedule's cupcake.
Schedule.
Yeah.
It's cupcakes, RJ. But no, RJ, for somebody like you that says you don't know how to pick a spread, it's super easy. If Liberty is an underdog, if the other team's favored by 5, you think Liberty's going to win, just pick Liberty plus 5. And if they win, you get 5 points. Very simple.
Yep.
RJ, you got to be in the challenge. Hurricane Jeff, want to hear you back. Buckeye Mike says, I was happy that I got on the board at the end of the year. That's right, Buckeye Mike. Better late than never. Better late than ever, Buckeye Mike. It's a lot of fun.
Just Jess says, please spay and neuter your pets. That is all. Thank you, Just Jess, for that. Oh, and I forgot to get to this yesterday, Cole. We were talking, I think it was your Overreaction Monday. You were talking about dogs being allowed into restaurants and a dog jumping up onto the counter. I got a text yesterday, and I can't believe I saw it as it came in, but I didn't get to it on the air. This is a buddy of mine who owns a restaurant here in the Upstate, a heritage restaurant in downtown Greenville, who says that all a dog owner has to say is that their dog is a service dog, and they have to allow them in. There doesn't have to be any paper documentation. They don't have to have one of those vests on that says this is a service dog. They don't have to provide any documentation. However, if the animal doesn't stay quiet and stay on the ground at the owner's feet, you can ask the person to leave. If they jump or bark, the restaurant can make the dog leave.
And I think the person should be thrown in jail. I just do. I had a buddy of mine ask me about it last night after I got off the air. He was saying, what restaurant is that? I did tell him. Tolo Steve says, I can't wait to start this back up again. Bring it on. Go Buckeyes, says Tolo Steve. Also, Buckeye Mike rocking and rolling as well. Let's keep the conversation going, Tolos, and talk a little South Carolina Gamecocks. Jack Veltri, Gamecock Central, and On 3 Sports joins the show next. Well, Jack Veltri of Gamecock Central's man enough to call in and talk a little South Carolina Gamecocks, as the promo man said leading into this segment. Tolos, if you're a Gamecock fan out there in the upstate of South Carolina and have a question for Jack Veltri of Gamecock Central and On 3 Sports, hit us up on the Hub City Spartanburgers text line at 844-326-3663. You can also leave a chat comment in the stream. YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter's where you can watch the show. Jack Veltri, always appreciate you joining Diesel and I on the Fan Upstate. What was your biggest takeaway from Birdies with Beamer that happened just a couple of days ago in Columbia?
Well, guys, I need to get a little bit better at golf. That's probably my number one takeaway. But I had a great time out there last week. Always appreciate everyone that puts that event on. It's always a absolute blast. And, I think that's my biggest takeaway. The fact that, the overarching elephant in the room, Rasul Faison's not still cleared to playing games. Now he's cleared to play in practice, which is great. And Shane had said at that availability that at the time they hadn't had the practice waiver yet, but they were going to, practice and whatnot, and until, he couldn't or whatever, until he was cleared. So, hopefully something with that will happen over the next month here, but that's probably just the main takeaway from that. And, the season's finally getting going with fall camp now.
Jack, did you at least hit a couple of good shots? I mean, that's kind of the way I golf. I want to go out there and have a good time and maybe hit 6 or 7 good shots to mix in with all the other crap.
Oh, yeah, man. Look, I think for me, it's always the first few holes are probably the most difficult, but once you get going, it's a lot of fun. I had a par on one of the holes out there. It was a good time. Had some nice shots, had a few putts, and I'm not terrible, but I always have a lot more work to do. So
as we all do, and I don't play golf, so I've got a lot more than you do. So feel better about that. Jack Veltri, Gamecock Central on 3, joining us right here on the Fan Upstate. You mentioned fall camp starting for the Gamecocks, as it is for all teams across D1 football. Jack, what do you think the biggest concern that South Carolina fans may have or should have is as the Gamecocks enter fall camp?
I think the main one really is just replacing what you lose from last season. It was a very good defense, for example, that you had last year, and a lot of those guys are gone. They're in the NFL now. You lose your defensive line for the most part, outside of Dylan Stewart, really, in terms of starters, and then you lose all your linebackers. You lose Nicky Manwari. How do you replace so many guys you're losing? Well, obviously South Carolina went into the portal, brought in a lot of pieces. They had a lot of high schoolers come in. So I think they feel good about where things are at right now. And again, we'll see how those competitions kind of work themselves out over the next few weeks here as the Gamecocks get going with fall camp and then eventually scrimmages as the season begins later this month. But it's going to take a little bit of time to see if this group this year can be half as good as last year, pretty good, better than last year. Time will really tell how that works itself out, but it's going to be probably the most interesting thing to see. And at the same time, it is a little bit concerning too, just because we don't know what that really looks like yet.
Jack, what kind of sense do you get what kind of change we'll see in the offense under Mike Shula as compared to the Dowell Loggins run offense? Obviously, the wide receiver core is just as good, if not better than it was last year, as these guys all get a little extra experience. But you don't have that go-to guy like Rocket Sanders there to carry the ball. How do you think that this offense will change as far as just how much they're asking Lenore Sellers to do with his legs and with his arm?
Yeah, and you mentioned the fact of how much they're going to rely on Lenore. I think that's where this offense has to start and end. I think so much of what they're going to do this year is predicated on Sellers, number one, staying healthy, and two, being able to have success, as a runner and a passer. So one of his best abilities is his ability to improvise and make plays happen on his own. And Shane was talking to us, I think it was a few weeks, maybe a few months ago, either during the spring or the summer, that, they're not going to take away that ability from him, his ability to improvise, just because that's such a weapon that he has in his arsenal. But at the same time, you're right. You mentioned it. The receiving corps should be a lot better this year. A lot of good freshmen brought in. You have some good guys returning. I think this is a group that may not have the true number one wide receiver yet, but I think someone's going to emerge from that group, and it's a better group overall just because you have a lot more pieces, and that should mean that they should be much more of a passing offense, especially given the fact of this whole Rasul Faison situation, like I mentioned before. We just don't know if he's going to be cleared yet or what that looks like in terms of how effective they're going to be in the running game this year, because either way, they lost Rocket Sanders, and that's almost a 1,000-yard rusher. That's not back this year.
No doubt. 25-year-old, by the way, and Rasul Faison that you're talking about with eligibility. Jack, you mentioned in Diesel's question and your answer that a lot of the Gamecock's success is going to hinge on Lenora Sellers. Is that fair?
I mean, whether it is or isn't, it's kind of just true, to be honest. I mean, you talk about guys that are really good quarterbacks in college football. I think Lenoris appears on a lot of those, a lot of those rankings and charts and stuff. I mean, he's one of the best in the game. And when you have a quarterback like that, of course, a lot of the success and failures of the team are predicated on what he does. But this is ultimately a team sport at the end of the day. Yeah. And you go back to last year, for as good as Sellers was down the stretch, let's not forget this defense was also very good. I think it's easy to look at, for example, the Clemson game and the heroic effort he had in that game with those 2 touchdowns he scored on his own. But South Carolina probably doesn't win that game if it's not for the defense making the stops they did. And then, of course, Demetrius Knight having that game-sealing interception late in the fourth quarter. So, yes, a lot of this season is going to be about what Sellers does, but it's also important, like, you've got to have the blocking in front of him. He's got to have the receivers catching the balls. The running game's got to be good. And then, of course, defense. One of the big questions is how are they going to be after last year with losing so many guys? So, yeah, to answer your question, it is going to rely on a lot of what Sellers does, but it's not just about him. It's the other pieces around him as well.
Jack Veltri, Gamecock Central, joins us here on the Fan Upstate, Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. Let's explore that receiving core just a little bit. Not numbers that leap off the page at you when you talk about the 2 quote-unquote stars of this receiving core, Nick Harbor and Mazio Bennett. Only 56 receptions and right around 700 yards combined when you add those 2 guys together. Who do you expect by the end of this season will ultimately put up the biggest numbers? Obviously, fans are really high on Mazio, and it took Nick a little time last year to get football legs under him all the way. Ultimately, who has the best season?
That's a good question. I really do think you could look at Nick Harbor as being one of those guys. I think Mazio Bennett's another guy. Don't forget about Jared Brown, another guy that I don't think has the best season last year. I think he's someone that, you look at his numbers last year, 15 catches, 244 yards, 1 touchdown. That feels a little bit low for a guy that you brought in as a transfer last year to potentially be that number 1 guy in the receiving room. So I think it's going to be one of those 3 guys. If I had to put my money on it, I'm probably going Nick Harbor just because I really like how much more he got involved in the offense last year. And you look at the fact that he's notably skipped the outdoor and indoor track season this past year, and that allowed him to have a full offseason to focus on football. Given the fact that South Carolina has lost their top target in Josh Simon, who was a tight end last year with over 500 yards receiving, Nick's your next best guy in terms of production coming back. Mazio was good as well, but Nick's got that potential with the speed, the size, the athleticism. If he really is going to develop, this is going to be the year for him, I think.
And there were a couple of games, Jack, toward the end of the season last year where Nick, he showed flashes that I believe a lot of South Carolina fans hoped would turn into that constant or consistent success in 2025. Offensively, we've asked you about Mike Shula with replacing some guys, especially the running back position, it being a question mark. Do you feel like, Jack, covering this team as much as you do during the spring and the summer with what you've seen and what you've heard from Shane Beamer, do you feel like the offensive production could be better even though because I've heard Beamer talk about that, even though they've lost guys from last year's team, he brought it up when he hired Mike Shula about offensive production. I don't know if that was something they weren't happy with at times last season, but if you feel that to be the case, in your mind, what could that offensive production being amped up an extra level in 2025 actually look like?
I think it certainly can be better this year for sure. I mean, look, I thought it was pretty good last year, especially down the stretch. But, then again, you go back to last year. I mean, look, when you think about last year's team, you think about the defense first, and then you think about Lenore Sellers. And then you kind of remember, they had a little bit of struggle with their leading receiver was a tight end, and, they just didn't have a true number one receiver out there. So, to answer the question, look, the offense I think it's going to be better this year. I think, like we talked about earlier, I think the receivers are a much better overall group this year. Tight end wise, you lost Josh Simon, and that's going to be really tough. But I like some of the guys that you have coming back with Michael Smith, who I think could really blossom this year. Brady Hunt in a full season where he's healthy, hopefully will take a big step forward. And then, the offensive line's another thing where you're replacing your three guys on the interior there, plus the center. But I think you have a pretty good situation there with probably Boaz Stanley starting at center and then figuring out the two guard spots. And I think this is an offense. Again, Sellers has another year under his belt now. He's more experienced. I think the Sellers we saw at the end of the year is potentially what we could see the whole year moving forward. Because got to keep in mind, he got off to a little bit of a slow start at the beginning of the year just because he was inexperienced. And then by that LSU game, week 3, he was able to really click and turn it on.
Yeah.
Jack, we don't in the media, we don't get to hear a lot from coordinators, and maybe you got to spend more time with Dowell Loggins last year than we got to hear from Dowell Loggins. Help me out here as an App State fan who now Dowell Loggins is our head coach. In his introductory press conferences, both when he was announced as the coach and in his first Sunbelt Media Day appearance, he was not strong behind the mic, kind of fumbling over his words, talking about his NFL experience and guys that he coached there. If you're me, would that give you pause as somebody who spent more time around Dowell than Cole and I ever got to?
Well, that does sound a lot like Dowell, honestly, just because, I mean, he when he was here at Carolina, he did talk a lot about his NFL days and stuff. And even, 2 years into, him being the coordinator here at South Carolina last year, I mean, he was still talking about, giving NFL references to his days and stuff. So that's on brand for him, and I don't think that's really an issue. But, look, I think Dowell's going to do a good job there at App State. I mean, look, he's did a pretty good job, I think, with this offense last year with Lenore Sellers, and it might take a little bit at first. Who knows? Just because App State, new coach. I mean, it could take a little bit of time, but I wouldn't worry too much about it. I mean, you see, not everyone is going to be media savvy out there, and I don't think Dowell's necessarily one of those guys that probably loves talking in front of the media all the time.
Jack, we're 26 days away from Sunday, August 31st, where South Carolina will meet Virginia Tech in Atlanta. I believe most people are under the belief that South Carolina is going to win this game and maybe by a couple of touchdowns. From anything you've heard, read, talked to, is there anything out there that you think South Carolina Gamecock fans should be a little leery of? I mean, Virginia Tech, is there any chance in your mind that we actually get a competitive game, or are you under the mindset and belief that South Carolina could win and could win in nice fashion?
They should be able to win this game, I think. But one thing with Carolina fans that I've noticed in my time on this beat is that, anytime there's expectations, you got to be a little bit weary. And you go back to 2 years ago. I mean, this was a program that was kind of in a similar spot to where they are now, where they're coming off the 8-5 season, which had the wins over Tennessee and Clemson. And you're looking at this 2023 team like, okay, like you got Spencer Rattler back, you got Juice Wells, you have Xavier Legette coming off the big bowl game. Like, this is a team that should be pretty good. And then what do? They go out there and become 5-7 and deal with a lot of injuries and stuff. And so hopefully this year is not the same thing for them. And Virginia Tech's in a much different spot than I think Carolina is. But, it's national TV. It's the game of the week on that Sunday. Only one of 2 games going on that Sunday. So pressure's going to be on. But I think this Carolina team is different just because it's a new year, and we'll see what happens. But I'm looking forward to just seeing what this team can really do.
Jack Veltri at Jack at T Veltri on Twitter is where you can find him and give him a follow. We had a couple of different Tolos ask this question about backup quarterbacks and the development of Luke Doty and of Air Noland. Earlier, you said this team kind of goes as Lenore Sellers goes, should he stay healthy. But if he doesn't, if something were to go wrong, even if it's just an ankle tweak, how do you feel about Luke or Air Noland or any of those guys' ability to step in and fill in those shoes?
Yeah, and you mentioned Luke there. I mean, Shane was talking about it at Media Day the other day that, right now, if something happened to Lenore in week 1 in that game in Atlanta, Luke's the guy stepping in and taking the role of quarterback. And you look at it from that perspective, it's like it makes sense because Luke's got the most experience in that room. He's a sixth-year guy now. He's started games in the SEC before. And sure, he hasn't played quarterback full-time in 2 years, but they feel really good. The staff feels really good about where he's at as a quarterback right now, and they feel pretty good about him. It's better to have a reliable option, someone that knows the system and isn't going to, stray away from what works for the offense. Like you probably won't feel like you're missing too much of a beat without Sellers out there. If you have a guy like Doty out there compared to throwing Air Noland or Cutter Woods or someone else out there that, keep in mind, has not played a game in college yet and are still learning the ropes of being at South Carolina and stuff. So I think right now, as we stand, I think Luke is definitely the solid backup quarterback option. But it wouldn't surprise me if that's something that Shane said to kind of light a fire under these other guys like Cutter and Air to take a step forward here during fall camp and see if they can take the reins and become the quarterback too as the year goes along.
And, Jack, I was going to let you go, but I've got a comment on that. We heard all spring and summer how good of a camp and during the spring and summer Cutter Woods had, and we all know what, Air Noland has some question marks and maybe has answered those during the spring and summer, but I don't understand it. Maybe I'm not questioning Shane Beamer at all, but if I'm a Gamecock fan and I hear that the guy who's been in the program for 6 years is going to be the guy who's backing up Lenore Sellers over these two younger players, especially Cutter Woods, who, has a lot of hype around it. To me, this just doesn't make sense. Help me understand if I'm a Gamecock fan thinking this way. I mean, this guy, 6 year, but in 6 years, he hadn't had a shot to go anywhere else or win the job. I mean, doesn't it feel like that it's time to let this ship, keep on sailing by?
I mean, I understand that sentiment, but at the same time, Luke is such a good dude and someone that they really like having in the facility, obviously, every day. And Luke loves being a Gamecock. I mean, there's a reason why he stuck it out this entire time now, and you don't see him transferring or anything. And look, it's not the worst thing to have him as a quarterback, too. I mean, I'm sure some people scoff at it and laugh at the fact of, oh, this guy has been here forever. He should just go get a job or whatever. But, look, if Sellers does get hurt or something, you're going to be wanting a guy out there that knows what he's doing and isn't a deer in the headlights week 1, if that were the case. And not to say Cutter or Air can't handle the moment, but we just don't know it yet. With a guy like Luke, he's poised. He may not be Lenore Sellers, but he's going to be the best version of himself and be able to go out there and not stray too far away from what you were seeing with the offense. The guy knows what he's doing, and I think it'll work out just fine.
Jack, are we going to see you down in Atlanta here in a couple of weeks?
Absolutely, man. Just got to wait for the credentials to get approved. So I'm looking forward to being out there and hopefully seeing you guys there.
Yeah, man.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate you.
All right. Thanks, Jack.
I don't know, man. That to me, and again, I'm not questioning Beamer, but I just I don't understand that, man.
You got a lot of young talent and potential in Air Noland and Cutter Woods, and maybe they, at this point, more experience but less talent is beating out less experience and more talent.
I just don't know how Shane Beamer, if I were to ask him, just look at him in the eye and ask him, who's the better quarterback, Cutter Woods or the guy that's been there for 800 years? I just don't know how Shane Beamer could look at me and say, it's the guy that's been here. Again, I'm not a coach, but man,
It's also, who do you trust? Who do you trust to not go out there and throw pick sixes?
I think that'd be a mistake. I really do.
When we come back, Cole, let's look at this. Let's peek over the fence and see how the upper crust richer half live. Some crazy new packages that you can buy for the Masters. It's coming up. Obviously it's bets on the calendar here in a couple of months' time. It's not that far away. How are the hoity-toity rich folk going to be experiencing the Masters next year? That's next. Texter is calling out my very cavalier use of the word couple of months, Cole, in referring to the 2026 Masters, which is 8 months away. I mean it in a more casual sense, not a couple as in literal
Well,
two.
you can't just say things on the radio without somebody.
That's true.
I mean, you've got to be.
People got to pick
know,
everything apart.
I mean, everything.
Well, the Masters in 2026, Thursday, April 9th through Sunday, April 12th. I see all these people all the time. I think even Corn Chip posted on social media that sadly he had been rejected from the lottery to get his Masters tickets this year. But if you just so happen to have buku dollars, there is a new way for you to go enjoy the Masters in 2026. So
all right, tell me more.
Let's all start shaking out the couch cushions, see if we can find this, Cole. This is a new premium VIP package offered by Augusta Nationals, referred to as the official Masters on the official Masters hospitality program. This package, according to the brochure, offers a host home from between $45,000 and $100,000 for the week. It offers private transportation up to $15,000, which includes a driver for the week and either an SUV or a Sprinter van. It also allows you to not only have one home, but two homes if you need it. A rental of two homes.
Oh, wow.
First home for $60,000 and a sleeper home for $38,000. I don't know what that means. Host home and sleeper home. It includes daily cleaning and fresh linens, transportation, pantry stocking, $6,000 worth, by the way.
Wow.
A full-time staff member who will be there at your every beck and call for just $13,000. $23,500 worth of catering, $13,500 worth of tee times at other area golf courses, and a 20% service fee of $36,600.
Is that it?
Yeah, that's
that's it. What's the grand total on that? I mean, goodness gracious, that's a little out. But for somebody that has the money, it's probably worth it, right? It's just a drop in the bucket.
Package, should you want it, Tolos, runs $219,000 to go experience the Masters in all its bliss and glory. And I know that Cole will start looking into this seriously because Cole prefers the finer things in life. He prefers the air-conditioned press box, the caviar, and the champagne. Me, on the other hand, I'm a man of the people. I want to be out there on the course sweating like everybody else.
The finer things in life, as I'm here in my old sweatshirt and camo hat, right? Look, I have a friend, and I envy them, Diesel, who lives so close to the golf course. I only see him once a year. We go on
in Augusta?
Yeah.
Okay.
We only get to see each other once a year because we go on the mission trip to Nicaragua with each other. I see him once a summer. They have people who will trade tickets for parking. They live so close.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is he the house that won't sell?
No, it's not that one. It's not that one. But he's that close that people park and they get tickets. They go every year. And guess what? It's ridiculous. I mean, it makes you sick of just thinking, man, if you just would have bought land and a guy, I mean, your ancestors, you'd be set up for life if you just had that property.
Andrew Dolores says, I got $20. Who wants to go in with me? I could probably throw you a $5 in there.
What was the grand total on that, Diesel?
$219,000.
Okay, so if you have $20, you need 10,950 other Tolos out there.
Does anyone know? Do the gypsies that live in North Augusta, do they rent their houses out for the Masters? Is that how they make their money?
Right? They've got to.
I mean, it's close enough. Does anybody know that? I don't know.
It's interesting
because they also have like the big house and then the smaller house next door.
Tolos, if you are a Gamecock fan, you've already enjoyed some segments we did earlier, especially with Jack Veltri of Gamecock Central. Always appreciate him. Let's flip the coin to the other side. Diesel, my biggest concern leading up to the Clemson-LSU game, what is that concern? I'll tell you on the other side. for you on this Tolo Tuesday. If you're a Clemson fan driving around the upstate, maybe listening on 97.1 in Spartanburg or 97.7 FM in Greenville, I want to hear from you. We want to hear from you on this Tuesday because we are creeping, Diesel, it feels like creeping, but inching towards the kickoff in the real Death Valley on Saturday night, August the 30th, when Clemson and LSU meet. I have thought about this game a lot. I told you earlier in the show that I have really struggled as of late when it comes to who I'm going to pick in this game. Next week, you and I are going to do our predictions and put them on paper. But I have one concern leading up to the Clemson-LSU game. Tolo's out there. If you're a Clemson fan, I want to hear your one concern or biggest concern. And Diesel, tell me if you agree with my concern or have a concern of your own. Welcome into Wire to Wire, hour 3 of the show. He's Diesel. I'm Cole Bryson. How many, just off the cuff, if you had to count on one hand, Diesel, or two hands, concerns for Clemson going up against LSU, would it be a one-hand or two-hand problem for you?
Probably a one-hand problem.
One hand?
I mean, I guess you could, in theory, break some of those concerns out into multiple concerns, but, nest a couple of them together.
I have a few in terms of, like, matchups, LSU's speed, Clemson's running back room. I have a few, but I'll tell you this. I have one that's the biggest concern, and I want to dive into it right here on the Fan Upstate. My biggest concern leading up to the Clemson-LSU game is Diesel. Clemson, in 3 of the last 4 seasons, has not looked prepared for their opening game. They have not looked ready to play for their opening game. Whether that falls on the players or the coaching staff, I don't exactly know. But you say, Cole, what are you talking about? What do you mean they haven't looked prepared? Well, at times they just look outmatched. I'll tell you, 2024, Diesel, we all know a season ago, Clemson experienced a 34-3 loss to Georgia. 2023, Clemson experienced a 28-7 loss to Duke on Labor Day, the night of Labor Day. 2022, they beat a really bad Georgia Tech team, 41-10. And then in 2021, Clemson lost to Georgia 10-3. So I ask the question to you, Diesel, as well as the Tolos out there at 844-326-3663. Phone lines are open in this segment as well. Is my concern a fair concern when it comes to Clemson just not looking prepared or ready to play in the opener?
I hesitate to say things like history actually matters because it doesn't, right? History doesn't matter. How they played against Georgia last year, how they played in big-time openers in the year past doesn't actually affect this game. Where it does come into play is whether or not Dabo Swinney is really, really top-notch level elite at getting his guys ready for week number 1, getting them hyped up for week number 1. I mean, could it be that you could argue there's a little bit of getting high on your own supply, feeling good about yourself, having this supreme opinion that we do things the right way here at Clemson, and that's just going to be better than the way everybody else does things, without realizing, okay, having good talent and being nice and smiling at everybody and not putting up bulletin board material, that doesn't work when you need to get nasty in the trenches.
Well, my whole thing is I'm with you on, Diesel, what happened in past years doesn't affect this Saturday or August the 30th. I'm with you there. The only thing I would say to that is your preparation might. Your preparation that caused those bad performances in years past might affect how you play in the opener. And again, I don't know if there's anything to be said for it. I'm not saying that Dabo Swinney and his staff don't know how to prepare their players the right way for the opener. I'm not saying that. Those words, before you start tweeting at me, getting upset, you Clemson ladies and men out there that are upset about, I didn't say that. I'm just saying, if you look at what history has told you, 3 of the last 4 years, they lost the opener, and Diesel, one of them was the Duke. The Duke! And by the way, 2 of the last 4 were both to Georgia. This one's to LSU. What does the narrative become? What does the narrative become, Diesel, if Clemson loses the opener to LSU? And I don't mean on a field goal that wins the game.
Right.
I mean a game that fourth quarter comes around and we're looking at each other thinking, yes, pretty much feels like LSU's going to win the game. Sure. What does the narrative become if Clemson goes from 3 of the last 4 to 4 of the last 5, and then all of a sudden we're talking about them being 3-6 against the SEC in the last 4 years?
They would be 3-7 in they're currently 3-7 in their last 10 against the SEC. They're 1-3 against LSU in their last 4, 1-4 against LSU. It tells me they can't recruit dudes to compete with the biggest and the best
of the SEC.
Of the SEC.
Yeah.
Right.
So that'd be a fair concern. Now,
it tells me you need to have the right matchup, the perfect matchup for you to be able to beat SEC teams.
Well, it's certainly fair because I'll tell you this. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Narratives change quickly, right? Think about it, Diesel. Think about this. It's August the 5th, and the narrative all offseason has been how Clemson's the favorite to win the national championship.
Yeah.
A year ago, when Clemson lost to Georgia, the narrative was nothing's changed. They lost to Duke a year ago on Labor Day. Now they come back and they lost to Georgia. It wasn't competitive. This team's just Kate Klubnik's not good. That was a year ago.
Yeah.
It wasn't like nobody felt like Clemson was a national championship team after that loss to Georgia. Well, they played with them for a couple of quarters. Yeah, but you couldn't hang with them. The war of attrition wasn't there. So that was the narrative.
Right, when you're as healthy as you're going to be going into the season.
So I don't know. I believe that this Clemson-LSU game that's coming up in a few weeks, Diesel, I think this sets the narrative in place all the way up until the South Carolina game. Because last year, Clemson went 0-2 against the SEC. They did. They didn't beat an SEC team last season. They lost to Georgia and they lost to South Carolina, right? So they go 0-2.
And they lost to Texas in the playoff.
Well, okay, you're right. 0-3, right? 0-3 if you count the playoff loss. So 0-3 after the Texas playoff loss. If all of a sudden you're talking about losing to LSU in the opener, I just want to know from Clemson fans out there, are the criticisms that people have against Dabo as of late, and I mean the last 3 to 4 years or so, not counting 2021 when they were really good, right? The criticisms like, how could you deflect them? How could you not admit that if you were 0-3 against the SEC last year, you start off 0-1 against the SEC this year, you may play another game in the playoffs, Diesel, like you did last year against Texas, another SEC opponent. But I'm just saying at that point, if you're a Clemson fan out there, what do you have to believe that this program is back to where it was just 6 years ago?
That's such a hard question to answer. I think it says that there's too much belief in themselves, stemming directly from Dabo Swinney, and not doing a very good job of scouting the other team. Again, it's like it's walking into a fight without having done any scouting of the other team, and we know that's not true. They do scout the other team. They do watch film of the other team, but it's like, again, it's that utter and unshakable, unwaverable belief that we're going to win this game just because we're Clemson and we have Dabo Swinney. But on the flip side of that, Cole, LSU has been awful in season openers too.
Yeah.
You know, they've lost their last 5 in a row. 3 of them under Brian Kelly.
Sure.
2 of them against ACC teams against Florida State.
Right.
So Brian Kelly is under equally amounts of pressure.
No doubt.
Going into this game. Now, originally, I was thinking a big concern for me would be line size. Player on player, hat on hat size. But, man, you look at this Clemson offensive line, they're huge. The defensive line, huge as well. So I don't think that's going to be a problem, right? Will Helt's sitting at 265, but he's a defensive end. TJ Parker, 265, defensive end. But you look in the interior, Capehart and Peter Woods, those are both big dudes sitting up there at 315. They're going to be going against LSU's offensive line, guys that are 300 pounds, 322, 300, and 310. I mean, that's a wash as far as I'm concerned. I think Clemson's defensive line, with the skill that Peter Woods brings in, with the skill that TJ Parker has, and especially having some speed, quick guys like Wade Woodaz and Sammy Brown back there, I think they're going to be able to get into LSU's backfield. I don't think it's going to be a problem for them.
RJ on the Hub City Spartanburgers text line says, I have some optimism about Clemson's preparation for the season, largely because the Tigers have someone who can put together a competent defensive game plan instead of a person throwing stuff at a wall. Again, that comes from RJ. He's talking about Wes Goodwin. And I think that's a big part of it. But I think going back to the conversation, Diesel, we talk about, like, narratives. And we talk about how one game can either set a program back or set a program forward. And I know, like, I'm not sitting here on this Tuesday saying that this one game is going to dictate the next 2 or 3 years for either program. But think about it like this. To your point about LSU, Brian Kelly needs this one. He needs this one. Yeah. If they lose to Clemson, and you talk about, 6 openers now, Diesel, would that be 6 openers you said?
Yep.
And
6 in a row.
Kelly's lost 4, and they're not able, with a stacked transfer class and a veteran quarterback, they're not able to back up what they said all offseason about having the real – if they're not able to go into Clemson and get a win, there's some serious heat. And I don't care what you say, because Cole, it's only one game. I don't care. If they can't win that game, Brian Kelly, he's already under heat. LSU fans already want him gone. If he doesn't win that game, the heat continues to rise. So just in terms of, like, opening weekend, we know Ohio State, Texas is big. There's no doubting that. We've talked about it. It's a big game. But, Diesel, in terms of, like, this game meaning more, I don't think Ohio State, Texas means near as much. This game, people need this game.
Yeah.
Brian Kelly needs this one. Dabo Swinney needs this one. He really does. I mean, he can talk about it all he wants, but in order to get past that SEC pinnacle, he went 0-3 against the SEC last year. He went 2-0 against them in 23. Carolina and Kentucky in 2023. Mm-hmm. And Carolina wasn't great. Kentucky was okay. Cade Klubnik played really good in the second half of the Kentucky game. Dabo needs this one. I don't want to say it's just as much as Brian Kelly, but both coaches, both programs, they need this one.
Yeah, the conversation would be that even when this team and the chips are stacked for Dabo in every way they could possibly be, fourth-year quarterback, continuity at offensive coordinator, one of the best defensive coordinators in college football coming to you at home.
Yeah.
And if you still can't beat LSU or make it a highly competitive game,
he's got to be competitive.
Touchdown or less. Yep. The narrative becomes, well, he just can't do it, right?
Sure.
He just can't do it.
He's lost it or something. The narrative is not going to be good. Now, I will say, Clemson while they both need it, Clemson can afford this one a loss more than LSU can. Clemson can afford a loss, still run the table, beat South Carolina, win the conference in Charlotte, North Carolina, and they're in the college football playoff. True. LSU, you lose this one, in 2 weeks you're hosting DJ Lagway. And then in 2 weeks you're at number 24 Ole Miss. And then the next week you're hosting South Carolina. And then in 2 weeks you're at A&M. And the next week you're at Bama and Bryant-Denny. And then in 2 weeks you're at Oklahoma.
Yeah. They have to have this.
They've got to have.
LSU
that's what I'm
has to
saying,
have this.
man. Like the urgency. when you talk about opening games, opening weeks of college football, not having Clemson. We both watched Clemson, Georgia last year. Clemson didn't look ultra prepared, but I'll tell you what they didn't look. They didn't look like they played with a sense of urgency. LSU, I think that's the biggest thing to watch as we're now, 3 weeks from actually being game week, 3 weeks from it being the actual game week of this game. Whoever comes into this game with the urgency, Diesel, I think walks out a winner because this is a must win. And you're right, being at Clemson's huge, a huge advantage. If it were at LSU, we'd be talking about this, and now Clemson's got this giant task and going and winning in Baton Rouge. But I'm telling you, man, in terms of the openers we've had in college football in the past handful of years, this one, the urgency with both programs needing this one, I think this one's at the top of the list.
Yeah, I mean, would you look at it and say that let's say an 11-win regular season Clemson who doesn't win the ACC championship game, do you think they get in?
Say that one more time.
An 11-win regular season ACC team, so that would be Clemson team. So you're talking about an 11-2 overall record. That would be 11 wins over the course of the regular season, 1 loss being the LSU, and then losing the ACC championship game, making your record 11-2 at that point. Is that team absolutely in?
Not absolutely, I don't think. So 11-2 with a loss,
especially if it's a bad loss to LSU. We're talking 14 points or more,
or like last year
on
to
your
Georgia.
home field.
So let's say if Clemson loses to LSU, they beat Troy, they're 1-1, 2-1, 3-1, 4-1, 5-1, 6-1, 7-1, 8-1, 9-10, and you're saying beat South Carolina.
Beat South Carolina on the road.
So you're going into Charlotte 11-1. You lose to Miami or Louisville or whoever.
Is it then contingent upon the result of that game? Let's say it's Miami or it's SMU again, and you lose that game.
So
here's close, or you lose it big. If you lose it big, are you out? That would be 2 ugly losses in the season.
These will answer your question. I would knee-jerk reaction. I'd say it's going to be tough, but guess what happened last year? Season ago, the loser of the ACC championship got in.
Made it in.
SMU got in last year. So
it almost feels like the committee is not quite prepared to relegate ACC to a one-bid league.
What was their record? I'm looking now.
SMU's?
Yeah, last year. So last year, SMU, Diesel, lost to BYU. Okay, so they lost to BYU in the regular season, and they lost to Clemson and Charlotte, making them 11-2, right? Am I right on that? They beat everybody last year in the regular season except for BYU. They lost to Clemson in Charlotte, so they're 11-2 after the ACC championship game, and they got into the college football playoff. Obviously, they went on to lose to Penn State in the first round in December on the 21st. But what I'm saying is SMU did it. SMU doesn't have that brand power that Clemson has, right?
Well, when you couple that with just the meat grinder that is the SEC, and now you're debating it again, an 11-win SMU team, 11-1 SMU team, and a 10-win or a 9-win SEC team. You probably say that 9-win SEC team is on paper or on the field a better football team, would probably win the game head-to-head, but the committee has shown us over the last couple of years that first number in your record matters more than just about anything else.
To me, it's like roulette. It's going to hit red, it's going to hit red, it's going to hit red, but eventually it's going to hit black.
But also,
meaning I wouldn't want to take the chance on a second year in a row the committee having let an 11-2 team in the AC. You know what I'm saying?
Good point. You touched on where I was going with that. What if this year is the swing back of that pendulum to where they go off of perception and feel more so than resume? If they say, well, we really think that a 9 or a 10-win SEC team, when you get down to debating, hey, who's going to get in there as that 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 spot in the playoff, not 12, that 9, 10, 11, 12 spot, then you're debating, should a 9-win Ole Miss get in? Should a 9-win South Carolina get in over an 11-win or a 10-win conference championship game losing SMU? You may say, well, we screwed that up last year. We got to get it right this time.
Lefty Tiger on the Hub City Spartanburgers text line says, I'm wanting to see what Riley and the offense will do. Can we open up the playbook and have multiple 30-plus yard passes? Or are we going to be conservative and just limp by? Lefty Tiger, I think I think it's an okay question to want to know what Garrett Riley will do now with this third year of Cade Klubnik, third year of Garrett Riley. I don't think there's any problem with having concerns there. Yeah. Diesel Texter from the 828 says an 11-2 ACC team with a loss in Charlotte is in 100 out of 100 times. I just don't agree with that, Texter. You just, based on what? Like 100 out of 100 times, I don't know, an 11-2 team.
Well, we've only had one time.
We've only had one.
I don't know that you can make that assertion there, Texter. We've only had one instance of the 12-team playoff, and it's played out the way it played out, and people were furious about it.
They were. And, Diesel, to your point, let's say there's a team in the SEC, and let's say the SEC is way better this year than they were last year, or there's a team out of the Big Ten. Let's say Michigan or Notre Dame. I'm just saying, Texter from the 828, I wouldn't want to leave it up to chance, is all I'm saying. I don't know that 11-2 out of the ACC with a loss in Charlotte is going to get you in every year. Could I be wrong? Maybe, but boy, I'd hate to be in there. I mean, imagine, Diesel, if that's what you are. If every year if you are the loser of the conference championship and you're having to put your fate into the hands of the committee, who we talked to the executive of the committee, Rich Clark in Charlotte, and he said there's no guideline. There's no
Can't show you the formula because there is no formula.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, I just don't want to put it in fate's hand every year.
And to who was it? This RJ? No, it wasn't RJ. It was Lefty Tiger. I think Clemson is definitely going to have to throw the ball. I don't think they're going to find some success against LSU throwing the football because LSU lost a lot in that secondary. They lost 19 starts off of last year's team. Cornerback Zy Alexander and safety Sage Ryan. 10 starts for Zy, 9 starts for Sage. You look at who they're replacing them with, and they're replacing them with some guys with a lot less experience and transfers. One's from Houston, one's from Virginia Tech, and neither one of them played a ton last year. So, that's not to say that they're not quick. That's not to say that they're not talented. But if I'm Dabo Swinney, if I'm Garrett Riley, that's exactly who I'm going after. Yeah. I'm targeting those new DBs for LSU, make them prove that they can stop the pass, and then, you slowly start easing in that running game.
It's interesting. It'll be here before you know it, and, boy, I can't wait.
It's Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. We got a little sidetracked earlier, didn't get a chance to get to it, but it is the conversation of the most hated owner in professional sports. Is it really just a one-horse race? Because it feels like all the guys that we used to hate are either out or have gone quiet and dormant. We'll talk about it next, right here on The Fan, Upstate. Don't you miss when we used to have like 5 or 6 owners in sports that we all thought were major tools? And like you could sort of spread that hate around between several guys. Now it feels like we're just down to one, Cole, because so many of the previous candidates have kind of cooled their jets a little bit. They've learned, they've learned from the errors of their own ways. They've learned from the errors of other owners whose fan bases really hated them. I mean, is it exclusively down to the one man who will never learn in Jerry Jones?
And we're talking about current owners, right?
Current
like
owners, yes.
In sports.
I say that because, I mean, certainly you can look back at a guy like Dan Snyder.
Yeah, you'd
the
say
fans
he was
hated
the
him.
worst. Yeah.
Everybody hated Donald Sterling. Everybody hated Robert Sarva, and a couple of other guys. But, James Dolan still owns the New York Knicks, but he's kind of cooled it and not been as James Dolan-y as he used to be.
Yeah.
You could say the same thing about David Tepper, who, he constantly meddled with the coaching position, with other issues as well, with draft picks, his prickly relationship with the media, intimidation of local restaurant workers. But even David Tepper is barely involved in the media anymore. It's all Jerry.
I think 4 months ago, maybe the most hated owner would be is it Miriam something, the Dallas Mavericks, because of what they did with Luka.
It's true.
Right? And previously under Mark Cuban, we know that Mark Cuban.
But did Dallas Mavericks fans hate that owner for a multitude of reasons, or was it they just didn't like that decision?
Well, the new owner, she hadn't been there, and her family hadn't been there long enough to make many decisions. Cuban sold in last year, year before last, right. So they're pretty new to owning the Mavericks, and so it was the probably not one of the first decisions, but the first splash decision, right? So I would say, look, if Dan Snyder were still the owner, I'd say Dan Snyder's at the top of the list, and there's nobody else near him. Now, we're not having the discussion, Diesel, of worst owner, right? We're having the discussion of most hated owner.
Fans can't stand him.
Yeah, I believe this is a tough one. I believe Jerry is the most hated. Other fan bases don't hate Jerry at all because he's allowed the other fan bases to win Super Bowls for the past 29 years, right? So I think we're at the point now where Dallas fans, for the most part, like if you polled every Dallas Cowboy fan alive worldwide, I would say the majority of them would say, yes, I hate Jerry Jones, especially now with all that's happening with Micah Parsons. But 10 years ago, 5 years ago, Diesel, I think there were still a lot of people who said, look, we're the best friend. I mean, we're the most profitable franchise. We're the richest. I mean, there were still a lot of people who were Team Jerry, but I think now the tide's pretty much turned on Jerry.
Tolos, who would you nominate as the current, active, most hated owner in sports? 844-326-3663. I mean, the brand is everywhere. I mean, if you're talking about the Dallas Cowboys, what's Jerry Jones doing right, though, at this point, right?
Selling
money. T-shirts, making money. Right.
That's all he's doing.
You can buy Dallas Cowboys gear everywhere. You can buy it up here at Academy Sports. You can buy it down the street at the local 7-Eleven. It's available literally everywhere. But outside of that, like, what's he doing that's making Dallas Cowboy fans happy?
I would say the only thing Jerry's done is in the last, let's take 29 years, Diesel, since the Cowboys have been to the.
Oh, you're going all the way back.
Yeah, let's just go 2 decades. Let's round it off at 20 years, right? I'd say that what has Jerry Jones done right? To answer your question, I would say that Jerry Jones, and I'm trying to be down the middle here. Jerry Jones has hired really good staff members like Will McClay, the director of player personnel, who have put really good rosters together that have allowed the Cowboys most years to be really competitive and win a lot of games. And the few years they didn't, you look back, the quarterback was hurt. You look back, Tony Romo was hurt. In 2015, 15. They won 4 games in 2015 when Tony Romo went down and Matt Castle was the quarterback. Jerry Jones has put together rosters. That's why, Diesel, I've always said when Dallas loses in the playoffs, everybody says the easy thing, Jerry's fault. Dallas has had some really good teams in the last 2 decades. How much of that's Jerry's fault? You know?
Yeah, I mean, you could, without knowing every individual situation, and you could probably, in your mental Rolodex, go through this very quickly. Jerry's constant loyalty to aging quarterbacks, to faltering coaches who a couple of years beyond their peak, he continues to stay with them even though they haven't really delivered. And like you could always see, you could see the decline year over year or the stalling out year over year and say, okay, are we just going to keep trying the same thing over and over again, or are we going to hire somebody who can do better?
And I go back to 2014 when the Cowboys had Romo and DeMarco Murray and were one of the best teams in the NFL, Diesel, and we all know what happened in Green Bay with the infamous catch that wasn't a catch that was later ruled a catch a couple of months later by the NFL. Was it Jerry's fault that Dez Bryant's catch in 2014 that sends them, by the way, to the NFC Championship game, the fact that the NFL messed up and botched that play, is that Jerry's fault? Is it Jerry's fault in 2017, the Green Bay Packers, they have them dead to rights, and the Green Bay Packers make a record history field goal, and it's 60-something yards to win the game, and Aaron Rodgers sends Dallas home. There have been instances where, I say this all the time, at the end of the day, the players that get paid the most money have to deliver. And has Jerry been too loyal? Jerry's done plenty of wrong. But I don't look at it and say, well, the Cowboys haven't been to the Super Bowl in 29 years only because of Jerry Jones. There have been a lot of other reasons, in my opinion.
So, again, talking about the most hated owners in sports, we spent a lot of time last year talking about David Tepper, the owner of the Carolina Panthers, who I think deserves some credit for making some good hires. Yeah. Dan Morgan, so far shaping up to be a really good hire.
Really
Dave
good.
Canales, so far shaping up to be a good hire. Obviously, the next year or 2 or 3 can make that decision and make that opinion a little more clear. And sure, David Tepper was really hire and fire happy when it came to head coaches. But I mean, looking back on it, hindsight is 2020. You can clearly see that those guys weren't working. So firing guys constantly and trying something, shuffling those deck chairs until you get it right, he finally got it right.
I think Dan Morgan's the best hire he's made and any other owner's made in the past 5 years. I'll tell you this, it's almost to the point, Diesel, where we wish Dave Tepper could sign an agreement that for the next 5 years, he's not going to fire anybody. and we could be wrong. Like, we could be wrong. Maybe it doesn't work out, but let's just give it 5 years. Let's give Dan Morgan and Canales, let's give them 5 years. Don't fire anybody. I think I'm telling you, the Dan Morgan hire could be what gets the Panthers back to relevancy, right? Because he's already done a good job just in a short time.
He's doing a great job getting their money situation fixed, and that's certainly going to change everything because money does make the world go around. The only other option I would look at, Cole, and simply for the fact that they've done so well even after this drastic change, would be Dean Spanos, who moved the Chargers from San Diego to L.A., but the Chargers were buns when they were in San Diego. They were kind of forgotten by a large portion of the league, and moving them to L.A., for better or worse, has coincided with this uptick.
Or John Fisher, the owner of the A's, who they've been horrible. All right, let's move him to Vegas, right? He's up there. He's up. I mean, they protested by, what was it, last year? They protested by not going to the game, and there were, 30? I mean, he's up there. The A's have been just god-awful. But I do ultimately, I think Jerry probably wins that conversation. So you love him or hate him, don't you?
Yeah, Jerry, and the one thing he can do to fix it is going to be the one thing Jerry will never do. step back and stay out of the limelight.
Well,
let
hire
your
a
GM do it.
He don't have a GM.
That's true. He is the GM.
He is the GM.
Hire a GM. That's
right.
That's the number one thing he can do, but he'll never do it.
No, he won't, and he'll croak before that happens. The only way that we could change our tune on Jerry is to say, hey, look, Jerry won a Super Bowl at the age of 109, doing it his way, right?
How old is Jerry? Upper 70s, maybe 80?
He is, quick Google search, 82.
You know Jerry's going to live to 105, right?
Yeah, my luck. And it's not going to change when he does, Diesel, because Steven's going to take over in the song. I mean, it's not going to matter. People act like, oh, when Jerry dies, it's going to be better. Well, Steven's going to be there. And, I mean, what's going to change? I don't know. I've met Steven several times. I used to work over there, obviously, and I know people still that work for him and work very close to him, and they do a lot of things right. They make a lot of money. They're very, very, very wealthy, right? But when it comes to making it all about football, it hadn't been the case, Diesel. It hasn't. What is the case is I am stepping down as the commissioner of our fantasy football league. We talked about it yesterday, Tolos. For any of you who just got off work and don't know what we're talking about, well, you've got an opportunity. If you want to be the commissioner of our fantasy football league, you have an opportunity to be that commissioner. I'll tell you how next. Well, if you're a Tolo out there and you think you're qualified to be the commissioner of the Wire to Wire Fantasy Football League, we have an opportunity. We have an opening for you, Tolos. We're taking applications. We're taking submissions right now at 844-326-3663. We did this yesterday as well, Diesel. So last year, I was the commissioner. I didn't like it. DB's already suggested maybe we put it on auto trade, which I'm open to. But we had a huge turnout.
Our choice for commissioner is no commissioner.
Hey, whatever makes it easier, right? We had a huge turnout last year. We had two separate leagues. I'll open us up a league very soon for you Tolos out there. But if you want to be the commissioner, accept trades, deal with Tolos, upset, the job is open. There are 4 criteria that you have to meet. We went through this yesterday in the 4 o'clock hour. If you haven't heard, the 4 criteria, number 1, you have to be available. Availability is the best ability, Diesel, right? You have to be able to answer texts or phone calls or letters. Dewey still sends, postage in the mail. And by the way, we still don't, I was going to crack on Rick and Greer, but still don't know if Rick and Greer's alive.
Yeah, wellness check on Rick, please.
I mean, what the heck?
If anyone knows him, go check on him, see if he's okay.
Months, by the way. You also have to have fast response times. You can't leave somebody on hold for 6 days like I did. Yeah. Number 3, you got to know ball. You got to know how to accept, or what trades to accept, what trades to deny. You can't make. We got to have balance in this league. Okay, we got to have competitive balance. And then number 4, no convictions or arrests within the last 90 days. That was just
and
fun.
we'll be lenient on that one.
We will be, yeah, because we some of us.
You never know, because that might preclude a lot of.
It might. And that's
I'm not casting aspersions.
No.
I'm just saying we don't want to.
As long as it's the first time it's happened, people make mistakes, right?
Hey, just because you're a convicted felon doesn't mean that you don't know ball. You got a lot of time in jail to study.
True. Let's see. DB on the YouTube stream says somehow I missed out on getting into the league. I'm playing it. Yeah, you. I didn't know you missed out, DB. I'll send you an invite. I enjoy it. I enjoy having a team. I really do. I promise I'll be better at this than I am, the NASCAR fantasy DB. But I enjoy having a team. The commissioner responsibilities I'm having to give up. So Tolo's out there at 844-326-3663. If you want to submit yourself, nominate another Tolo, that's fine. RJ's volunteered. Dewey was nominated yesterday. Diesel was. Did you say that Dewey's on vacation in Florida?
That's what he told us. He told us he was going to Florida.
And that's this week,
he would be
right?
Without cell signal. It's like what you put in your away message when you go on vacation. You say, I'm going to have limited cell service, which means, translation, don't call me because I'm not answering.
What part of Florida doesn't have cell service?
The Everglades?
I guess so. Dewey going, Buckeye Mike on the Hub City Spartanburgers text line.
I don't think they have internet in the panhandle of Florida yet.
Florida is that a Florida State cracking on Florida State a little bit? Buckeye Mike says, I'm too busy for a commissioner. I look forward, though, to defending my championship. Calling a shot there, Babe Ruth, sticking his bat out in center field. I like it, Buckeye Mike. So we'll let you Tolos know when we get the league. I'll do that in the next couple of days because I know it's approaching. Lefty Tiger says, I'm a commission. My work league, I'll gladly take on the commission of this league if I need to keep it around. How needy were we last year, Cole? I mean, I wouldn't say like really needy, but people want to make trades and have questions, and I wasn't the most responsive, so I wasn't the best commissioner. Diesel fired me. It's actually what happened. I got demoted. No, I fired myself, demoted myself. So we've got a couple candidates. We've got a couple candidates for this league commissioner. I like it. I like the direction it's going.
So now we'll have to get them on the phone on the air.
That's right.
To debate with one another.
Oh, yeah, like a presidential debate.
Let the Tolos choose,
Yeah. Make sure you're below the age of 90, though. That'll help the debate flow a little faster. So we might do that on Friday.
Tolos, when we come back, let's jump back into a conversation that we had earlier in the show. What we actually started the show with earlier was college football playoff dark horses for the 2025 season. Who's going to kind of come out of nowhere? We'll talk about it next.